Working waterfronts are an integral part of the soul and character of the nation's coasts. This rich and dynamic maritime heritage is perhaps most evident right here in the New York, New Jersey metropolitan region. The engine of growth that propels our region is our majestic seaboard. From crates on wooden ships arriving to Dutch New York almost 400 years ago to today's massive container ships that are 4 football fields long, the working waterfront has remained core to our regional economy, and we continue to benefit from its dynamic growth. More than ever, especially in difficult times, we recognize the long-standing history and importance of the region's maritime sector. From our dock workers and longshoremen, to our busy ports and terminals, to our harbor cruises and ferries, these institutions have stepped up after 9/11, during blackouts, after Hurricane Sandy, and through many other crises to keep us safe, to keep us moving, and to keep our region strong. In recent months, during the worst pandemic of our generation, the maritime sector has risen to the challenge by keeping vital supplies, from medical equipment to food, flowing into the region, ensuring our supply chains are strong and our shelves are stocked during COVID-19. Always preparing for change, today the working waterfront is adapting to larger vessels, new innovations, and the specter of climate change impacting our waterfronts and waterways. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, serving our nation since colonial times, has been at the nexus of our waterfront's evolution, most recently expediting the dredging operation that allowed the USNS Comfort to dock on the west side of Manhattan. The Army Corps is at front and center in the nation's response to climate change and resilience. Through its skilled planning, engineering design, construction, operations and maintenance, and research and development activities, the Corps is responding to more frequent and more powerful natural hazards, man-made adverse events, changing conditions, and increasing uncertainty. In its 99th year of existence, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey is a local economic driver supporting 400,000 regional jobs. It has become the second largest container port in the United States and has been repositioned to meet 21st century needs, including new, larger Neo-Panamax vessels. And the port is preparing for the next 30 years through its master plan, which anticipates rising cargo volumes and a greener, more resilient and sustainable port. To the men and women behind the scenes, longshoremen, dock workers, captains, and engineers who keep our port and our waterways alive, we thank you. You are essential. We thank and recognize all our heroes of the harbor today and every day. Welcome.
Yes, welcome everyone to our Near Peer Career Virtual Panel Series. I'm Rabina Taliaferro. I'm the Assistant Director of Education Outreach for the Billion Oyster Project. The Billion Oyster Project mission is to restore oysters to New York Harbor through public education initiatives. Our flagship school is the New York Harbor School, the public career and technical education high school on Governor's Island, where students study 7 fields related to the marine science and maritime industry. So this 7-part webinar series introduces middle and high school students to New York Harbor School alumni and industry professionals in the marine technology and science fields, giving students the opportunities to get a glimpse from a diverse group of individuals that are currently studying, exploring, and working in vessel operations. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Captain Aaron Singh, who is the teacher for the Vessel Operations Program.
Thanks, Rabina. And I also want to give a shout out to the Waterfront Alliance for putting together a Heroes of the Harbor virtual boat parade, and they use that for their benefit. And you know, we used to actually bring our boats to the real parade pre-COVID, so I want to give them a shout out for that. So yes, thank you everybody for taking the time to join us on our first Vessel Operations career panel. Just to give you a little bit of background, Harbor School is definitely a maritime-oriented school in science and technology. Our goal in the Vessel Operations Program is to make these connections for New York City youth that wouldn't necessarily know about maritime careers. And we've done a really amazing job, you know, from the start of the school in 2003 to now, just introducing these career paths. And we've seen a change over the last 5 to 8 years of producing graduates that have been in the industry, and we've seen them enter the job markets in the harbor. We've seen them going off on offshore careers. And then we've seen students that have done career paths, that aren't maritime related, but always come back. And so we're really fortunate to have this amazing school to get that word out about maritime. And so today, this panel is hopefully going to hook up with junior high school students, middle school students, and so they can understand that there is a maritime high school out there, and something that they could be interested in going into eventually when they choose a career path. So we thank you again for taking the time. We have a wonderful group of student moderators that are going to be working with everybody. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Avery Binns. She's going to go ahead and introduce our panelists and talk a little bit, our moderators that is, and talk a little bit about just kind of set the rules here. So Avery, I give it to you. You could turn on your video and mic.
Welcome, students. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us today. I'm going to ask all of our moderators to turn on their videos as this meeting continues on. My name is Avery Binns, and I'm a senior in the Vessel Operations Program of New York Harbor School. Today, we're going to be meeting with panelists that undergo a career in the maritime industry, as well as some who are Harbor School alumni. Throughout my time in this school, I've come to the conclusion of what I want to do after I graduate, and that is to enroll into SUNY Maritime College and endure a career in the Coast Guard. I hope that this meeting helps many of you gain valuable information on our school, as well as help you gain advice for your future life and career choices. It's my pleasure to introduce my fellow moderator, Jaden Rajab.
Hi, my name is Jaden Rajab. I'm currently working on my college applications to get into a maritime college. And yeah, that's about it.
Nayeli.
Hi, my name is Nayeli. I am a junior in the Vessel Operations Program. And what I've been doing recently is trying my best with school and trying to keep up. And for next year, I'm really looking forward to hopefully being on the water and finishing my senior year and having an internship. Now to Kendall.
Hi, my name is Kendall. I'm also a junior at New York Harbor School, part of the Vessel Operations Program, and I'm still during this time, I've just been working on schoolwork that I have. I am also looking forward to getting back on the water sooner this year, or if after that, I would want to apply for SUNY Maritime College and becoming a captain for a cargo ship.
Thank you all for introducing yourselves. And now, without further ado, I'm going to introduce the panelists that are here. Captain Jim DeSimone was the Chief Operating Officer of the Staten Island Ferry and recently retired in July 2020. And as I've heard, was an amazing supporter of the New York Harbor School. Halcyon Spooner is a mariner on fishing and sailing vessels and is also a Harbor School alumni. Captain Tara Quinn is deck instructor at SUNY Maritime. She is what we know as a hawse piper. For those who don't know what that is, it's an informal maritime industry term used to refer to a merchant ship's officer who began their career as an unlicensed merchant seaman and did not attend a traditional maritime college or academy to earn an officer's license. Personally, I'm very excited to see how you got to where you are today. Paulina Chesnek, forgive me if I said that wrong, is an international organizer. I apologize. Is an international organization of masters, mates, and pilots, AFL-CIO, Atlantic Maritime Group International representative. And lastly, Captain Antonio Duran, another Harbor School alumni, and the first in the newly created Vessel Operations Program in 2010 to obtain a third mate unlimited license. I apologize. Somebody called me and messed up the video. Newly created Vessel Operations Program in 2010 to obtain a third mate unlimited license from SUNY Maritime. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm going to pass this on to Jaden so he can tell you a little bit about our program and play a video.
All right, so as most of you know, not all of you, all 4 of the students here are in the Vessel Operations program. We're all seniors and juniors. And for your sophomore, junior, and senior year, you will be on the water and just learning all the basic things that you need just to kind of path your way into this career. And we have a little video that we're gonna play for you now, just showing you guys what we do.
My mom always called me a mermaid. I have no idea why, because I didn't even know how to swim. I don't have a relationship with the water before harbor school. I never been on a boat. I never learned how to swim. Never been to an island, well, Brooklyn and Manhattan. I learned how to swim with the school. I learned how to drive boats with the school. I got my certifications from the school, everything from the school. I didn't come from a family that went to college, and I always thought college was the most important thing. Well, I still think it. I'm planning to go to either SUNY Maritime or the Coast Guard Academy. Yeah, if I have money. Honestly, once my freshman year started, I always thought about boats.
Okay, Ashley, who was the main person talking in the video, she is now attending SUNY Maritime College as an alumni from Harbor School. Now I'm going to ask some of the panelists, or all of the panelists, I should say, to introduce themselves and give a brief description of what they do with their lives and how they are now. Captain DeSimone, will you please turn on your camera and introduce yourself?
There we go, all set. My name is Jim DeSimone. I grew up on the water, actually, in Throgs Neck in the Bronx, and I went to Maritime College. I've been around boats all of my life and around the waterfront, and so it seemed like a pretty natural thing to do. I graduated Maritime College, and I followed a traditional career path at sea. I started out as an able seaman and then sailed in all capacities from third mate up to and including master, primarily on oil tankers. And then I had a change in my career. I was offered the position as the Commandant of Cadets and the captain of the training ship at Maritime College. And so I assumed that position, and I held that for 10 years. And certainly an interesting experience. It was actually a lot of fun and something I really fondly think back on. I have a lot of great memories. I then went back into the industry, and I spent a number of years shoreside in senior management positions in the tug and towing sector and the ferry industry. And as was mentioned earlier, I retired as the Chief Operating Officer of the Staten Island Ferry in the end of June, well, right around July 1st of this year. And I am now retired. I'm living in sunny Florida. And I think the young lady, the video that just showed, who is now attending Maritime College, she said that she never really had the water or the sea in her blood. And I guess mine has been the other way around, such that when my wife and I decided to retire in Florida, all the places we kept looking at, the two of us kept coming back, well, we need to be on the ocean. So I have the ocean out over here. So I've been on the water, and just about every office I've actually had in my career, I could look out on the water. So it's a big deal to me. It's been a really enjoyable career, and I'm still somewhat involved doing a couple of things for various companies. So in any case, at that point, I'll cut it off here, and maybe the next panelist gets to say something. Should I keep my video on, or I'll just wait for instructions?
Thank you for sharing. You can turn your video off until everybody is done speaking. Next up, we have Halcyon Spooner. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Halcyon Spooner. I graduated from the Vessel Operations Program from New York Harbor School in 2015. And since then, I did go to Maine Maritime Academy for a bit, but realized I wanted a change in path. So I decided to take the opportunity to see other ways to get where I want to be in the maritime field. And most recently, I went fishing in Alaska. Never done that before, but getting to see the side of commercial fishing, you know, because being in the harbor for years, you don't really see that side of the industry, and getting to experience that has been pretty good thing. And I'll like to continue within that path. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Next up, we have Captain Tara Quinn.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Tara Quinn. I'm presently an instructor at SUNY Maritime. I work in the Maritime Technology and Operations Department. This is a new position for me, so I'm learning as much as I'm teaching, if not more. And it's really an honor to be here, broadcasting from Fort Schuyler. I did start on sightseeing ferries in the summer of 2001. I was a student at Hunter College, and I was offered a job on the ferries, and it was just a summer job for me. And then I continued to work through the fall and the weekends. We did guided tours up to West Point on the Hudson River, foliage tours. It was really beautiful. Or we were getting ready to do that, actually. And then, of course, with 9/11, I learned the value of the waterways, where, you know, I'm from Teaneck, New Jersey. And so the waterways had always been an obstacle for me, you know, getting into the city, getting my first job was always, you know, sitting in the viaduct for the Lincoln Tunnel. So it was something, it was really a change for me to see how important our waterways are. So I kept trying other jobs, and it kept coming back to the waterfront. I worked in customer service on the waterfront, dispatching ferries when the PATH trains were down. And, you know, dealing with customers is difficult. One of the moderators was interested in how I got into this. I think it was, most people can be a little bit, you know, they're going on with their lives and they're really focused on what they're doing. But there was one customer who I had helped, and then he pointed to the wheelhouse and said, you know, when are you going to be up there? And I was working on the pier and the ferry, and I was just telling people what slip to go to. And that was really the first time that I thought that it was possible. You know, I had kind of dreamed of it. And then, you know, I kept working toward that goal. I worked on tall ships for Clearwater doing environmental education. I worked on historic boats like the USS Potomac out in San Francisco. I worked for the National Maritime Park at the Hyde Street Pier in San Francisco. I did oil spill response. I responded to Deepwater Horizon as an AB. I was able to get time towards a 1,600-ton license down there in the Gulf. From there, I worked as a mate, and then I saw a position open as an AB on an unlimited vessel, a research vessel. So I did that for 6 years, and that's how I got the unlimited license. In the meantime, I've worked on tugs on the Hudson River and in the harbor and down towards Philadelphia. I've had a lot of really good experiences. I've stopped by, I've volunteered at Harbor School. I really love the program there. And it's all kind of brought me here back home to New York Harbor, teaching. It's been a wonderful experience for me. I learn something every day and I meet really interesting people. And, you say in this industry, boring is good. So I have some nice boring days and, just enough excitement to, keep enjoying everything. So once again, it's an honor to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing your story. I personally find that very, very inspiring. And next up we have Paulina Sheznik. And again, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong.
Good morning. Yes, my name is Paulina Sheznik, and don't worry about missing my name. Happens all the time. I was actually born in Poland, and I came here when I was about 7 years old, lived in New York. Now I'm in New Jersey. I attended SUNY Maritime. I was class of 05. And unfortunately, I didn't get my third mate's license just because I started working in New York Harbor my last year. Started working for New York Water Taxi along with Sea Streak and some of the dinner boats like Cornucopia. And I realized that I really wanted to stay in the New York Harbor. So I went out, got my 100-ton license. And after Water Taxi, spent there about 3 years. Then I went to Statute Cruises for about 10 years, where I worked on deck and I became a first officer over there. And then I had an opportunity that came up to be an international rep for masters, mates, and pilots. And I've been doing that for about 2 years. I also, in the process of that, decided to go back to SUNY Maritime. So I was also the class of 2020, finished that off. And I got to say, working in the New York Harbor has been very inspiring. It's been different. You see a lot of good people, bad people, crazy people. It's not easy being a woman in industry. And I know people always ask me how it is out there. I always loved it. I didn't have any issues with it. It's challenging, but I definitely would encourage all the women out there and all the ladies to go out and work in the New York Harbor. And you can always, reach out to me. I'm sure Aaron has my information. Just give me a call or shoot me a text, and we can chit chat a little bit more about either SUNY Maritime or just working in the harbor or anything else. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. And last but not least, there's Captain Antonio Duran. Can you please come on cam and say your piece?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Antonio Duran. I went to New York Harbor School, graduated in 2008, and also went to SUNY Maritime, graduated in January 2017. I would like to say that I think it all started in New York Harbor School. I never got a chance to see the water. My first experience was with New York Harbor School as a student. I remember doing clear water sailing. That was probably one of my unique experiences because it was an overnight trip. And then later on, I did an internship with Staten Island Ferry while at SUNY New York Harbor School. And under Captain D. Simone, which I would like to thank very much for that experience, Aaron Singh and everyone who's here. After that, I just fell in love with the water, loved being out on the water, so peaceful, New York Harbor, beautiful place. So I went on to work to New York City Ferry, started as a deckhand, then went up to captain. After that, I had already graduated SUNY Maritime, so I went on to work on ships. I got a third mate license, and there wasn't much opportunity as a third mate at that time, so I started as an AB under SIU, Seafarers International Union, and I got my foot in the door with the company, got a promotion, and from there it's been sailing as a third mate. I have my seat time to bump up to second mate, currently in the process, and just waiting in the mail. And if anyone has any questions and wants to reach out to me, Captain Aaron has my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions. I could help out. Thank you.
Okay, as some of you may see, there's a poll on your screen. We're going to take a quick 1 minute to fill that out. Please and thank you. Okay, so I'm going to be telling you the poll outcomes. As you've seen, the question says right now, how far away are you from a major body of water? 3% says within 25 miles. Another 3% says within 10 miles. 39% says within 5 miles. 42% says within 1 mile. 6% says my feet are wet right now. And 6% says I have absolutely no idea. Now, can please all panelists and moderators turn on their cameras while we continue to go about discussion? Nayeli, may you please take the mic?
All right, now it's time for the panel discussion. I want to thank all the panelists for being here today for this event and opportunity. My question is for Paulina and Halcyon. In your opinion, how can we advance the maritime industry for women? Like Paulina, you was talking about for you, it was kind of hard to be a woman in the maritime industry.
Yeah, it was a little tricky just because there isn't that many of us out there. So when you actually work for a company and you're like the only female, they always look at you like, well, can you do what I do? Well, yeah, of course you can. I mean, in my perspective, I had to do a little bit more work than everybody around me just to kind of show them that I can do the work. But as long as it's something that you're interested in doing, I would just say, just keep going. Like, don't stop, just keep going. You know, if you find a mentor in the industry, definitely reach out to them. You know, Aaron has my phone number, so anybody can reach out to me. You know, I can give you my experience that I had, good and bad. But like I say, if you want to do it, go for it. Just don't stop. Just keep pushing through and you'll be great at it. All about the passion. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Paulina on that point. You really just have to go out there and try to do what you want to do. I've been fortunate to have a lot of women in the industries in the paths that I've chosen, like dealing with tall ships, and also this past summer fishing. I was on a crew and there was only one male on the boat, and my captain, she was a female, and everyone else. And being in that environment really benefit me as well, because knowing that, you know, there's no one there to just use muscle, you know, to solve a problem, and it's stuff we'll have to figure out for ourselves. So just being in that environment, you know, you get to use your brain a lot more, and knowing that you're actually capable of doing the jobs that you're put out to do.
So Halcyon, if you, let's say you were in an environment where you were surrounded by mainly males, do you think that would have changed how like you are today in the career?
I don't think it'll change much. Yes, I have been on boats and dealing with crews that have mainly males, but you just learn how to interact with them differently. It's that whole thing about generally you go out there and guys do, like with lifting things and strength, you know, there will be guys who are like, you know, they can do this because obviously they're stronger at some point, but then with me and working with more women, you realize, oh, I could figure this out, but in a different way, maybe use winches or, pulley systems, and actually have it benefit, because the job can get done regardless of who's working. And that's what I've learned over time with that.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
So I think I will take the next question, and this is more for DeSimone. So I know that you are a great help in our school. You have helped us obtain a privateer, which is our 47-foot buoy tender, which I love that boat personally. It's my favorite one. It's my favorite that we have. And you also helped us get our simulator in our vessel operations room, which is a great help because in the winter we really can't go out much due to the circumstances. And also on the simulator, you have been able to, since you've been in the career for so long, you've been able to see it like grow as time goes on. And on a
I apologize. Our moderator is having connection issues. Kendall, will you like to take his place?
Yes, I will. And my question is for Captain Antonio Duran. I had heard that you had worked on cargo shipping out across the world, and I was wondering, since I've lived in New York my entire life. I haven't really been anywhere outside of New York. I was wondering, like, how was it for you when you first shipped out on a cargo ship to wherever you had went?
Wow. So, hello, Kendall. And I was in the same shoes as most of you in New York. I never had left New York, never really been abroad. And my first experience was actually mind blowing because, just to experience that when you travel, airport, hotel, so the process for me is you go to the airport, company arranges everything for you. If you have to move around in a rental car, training, they provide everything for you. And just that was mind blowing. Then after that, I was on a tanker, the Maersk Perry, as an AB, and I met that ship in the Philippines. And, just first time going into a place you don't know, an airport, where they're speaking a different language. It's just like, wow. After that, it's just, I've gotten off in places like Japan. I've been to South Korea, many places in Europe, Italy. It's just amazing experience. And the different cargo that you have, for example, I was on a tanker. The process of loading and unloading, totally different from, let's say, a roll on, roll off. Where you have a mix, let's say on deck, you could have containers, and down below decks, you have vehicles or other rolling cargo. And it's just amazing how you could travel with your job, and anywhere you need to go to meet the ship. It's never the same thing that you will do. It's always a different place, different cargo, and yeah.
Okay. And do you have like any times or where you shipped out and that something interesting happening, any memorable stuff?
Anything interesting happening? So let's say because of the nature of the cargo, we were going through the Suez Canal, and once we had to have security detail, and going into Bab al-Mandeb, pirate waters, basically. It's just a unique experience that you don't get to experience either on small ships or small boats like New York Harbor. And, just being escorted by a naval ship, it's a pretty cool experience. And just I guess being a little bit on your toes of, watching other small boats, other ships, strange things happening, it could be pretty cool.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm sorry about that. My internet cut out for a second. But back to Captain DeSimone. Where do you think our technology is going to take us in the maritime field in, let's say, like 10 years?
It's going to take us quite a ways. It's basically permeating the entire industry. I think one of the areas you see the most technology is in the container side, where you have this massive supply chain that is completely technology based. And so that's already happened. On the tanker side, the ships, there was more and more technology. The first tanker that I sailed on had manual cargo valves. You had, for example, as a third mate, there were 2 able seamen and 1 ordinary seaman on each watch. And so if you were loading the ship, you would typically have a seaman standing by a valve. And you actually, and we laughed about this at the time, you actually put a stick into the oil to see the level as it was coming up. And that, when that stick got to a certain level, you told the person over there, okay, close that valve, and someone else maybe to open another valve. Well, today, just about all tankers are completely automated. Everything from conceivably starting the cargo pumps to opening valves, inert gas systems, everything on board is more and more technology based. And this is going to continue. We have a lot of experimentation going on worldwide for various levels of automation, from automated engine controls all the way through to an autonomous vessel. And we're going to see more of that. And I don't think people should be running scared, because if you look at a completely autonomous ship, and that's not going to happen for a while, but it's going to happen. And it's not something we should run scared from, because there'll be new and different types of jobs in the industry. And so those are things that have to be embraced. But technology is, you're seeing, for example, the Brooklyn Navy Yard has a maritime technology hub over there. And other parts of the world, there are specifically maritime technology hubs that are looking at all aspects of the industry. It's an industry traditionally that has resisted change, and I suppose that's probably the case with most industries, but the maritime industry, I mean, as we exist today, if you owned an oil cargo and I owned a ship, an oil tanker, we would have to rely on a broker who is going to take a percentage of the pot to put you and me together. Well, clearly, technology can handle that. And there are a lot of diverging interests in how things move, whether they move quickly or slowly. But you're going to see more and more of this. And as I said, it's not something that we should be running from. It's something that we should be embracing. But people are uneasy with change. And if I could just make a couple of comments about going back, the comment about the females, and what they can and cannot do in the industry. When I was the Commandant of Cadets at Maritime College, we used to meet regularly with a group of females. And at one of these meetings, there was a discussion that the females didn't get to use the tools on the training ship, automated tools. And which was a shock to me. This is how detached you get from things, but this was the reason we were having these meetings. And someone in the group said, well, the tools are heavier. That's why the guys, they get them. Well, as it turned out, one of the females who was sitting in the room was the captain of the women's crew team. And she was a beautiful, lovely young lady, but I could tell you flat out, she had more physical strength than a number of the guys sitting there. And so a lot of times we lose sight of this. And there's plenty of opportunity and places for females. And, and I'm happy to see more and more of them take their place in the industry. So in any case, I'll shut up now, but I heard that and I was reminded of this meeting, and it was pretty funny. The guy that I picked on intentionally, he might still be regretting that I said, look at him, he's a little skinny guy. Right? So, but in any case, I'll shut up on that. And if you have anything else, okay, shoot.
Okay, so I have another question, back to the technology part. Why do you think people in mainly the maritime industry are so scared of, technological change?
The industry is built on, it's steeped in tradition. Just look at maritime law. All law is predicated or based on maritime law. Insurance, the entire insurance industry is based on marine insurance. So the industry has a very long history. And people look at true and tried methods. And I have to say that I'm a part of that crowd. The Staten Island Ferry has 3 new ferries under construction. And I was probably one of the most resistant to major changes on those vessels, simply because if you are going to be transporting, 25 million people a year, we're not going to experiment with technology on the Staten Island Ferry. You have to have proven technology. And if you find yourself out in the middle of the ocean in a storm, you're not necessarily open to experimenting with that. So I think that's a part of it. And, but I mean, I'll tell you flat out, when I was going to sea, I forget whether I was a second or third mate at the time, there was a conversation over the dinner table. I was sailing on a steam tanker, steam turbine down below. And someone at the table was saying, oh, they'll never have unmanned engine rooms. And the chief engineer on that ship was a Norwegian. And I'll remember it to my dying day. He said, when was the last time, in a Norwegian accent, when was the last time you saw a Mercedes diesel driving down the road with someone under the hood? Okay, these things happen. This is technology, and it's an industry that, as I said, tradition means a lot in that industry, but I think sometimes it also impedes progress.
Thank you.
I have a question for Tara Quinn. Hello. I was wondering what would be a practical piece of advice that you'd give to a student who would want to be in the maritime industry, especially if they weren't looking forward to going to a maritime college?
Okay. Well, right now I'm teaching at a maritime college, and there are a lot of benefits to the school. As for me, speaking from my experience, take any job to learn. I learned a lot about the industry as a tour guide with no responsibility in terms of the operation of the vessel. I was able to make a lot of observations. Even if you do want to go to a college or a school, it's really good to just take what job's available. You may not have a license right now, but it's kind of hard for me to say that that's a good idea at present because of what's going on in the world. But ticket agents, get familiar with who the crews are if you are working these boats. I know they were running ferries to Governor's Island. There were jobs up until this weekend. There were customer service agents, and I talked to the customer service agent because I said, oh, I had that job 20 years ago. And I said, and she was kind of beaten down because people in any customer service job, if you're a high school student, that's the job that you're usually qualified for, either answering phones or anything like that. But look for put your foot in the door in an industry you're interested in an entry-level job. I learned so much because I filled in for people in the office. I just became a person where they could just, call and have me do something in an industry that I became more and more interested in. So no job's too small. washing dishes. I've washed dishes on ships. I've done, whatever's available. So that's my advice. The maritime schools don't just have 4-year degrees, they also have associate degrees. So that's something else to think about if you don't want to go to school for 4 years, or if you have if it's a cost issue, there are associate degrees as well.
Thank you. And follow-up question, do you feel like you learned more from becoming a teacher at SUNY Maritime?
I learn a lot every day. I learn what I know and what I don't know. And I think the only way you can really learn is through teaching. And that's, I feel very fortunate to be here because I see my weaknesses. Sometimes I think that, that I do understand something, but then when it really gets down to it and people ask me questions, I have to kind of track back a little bit and keep an open mind. People have different experiences here in New York City and throughout the world. So globally, I've seen that, and I've seen that right here at the university, so.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the attendees in this discussion to please write down questions in the Q&A, and we will be asking and sharing.
There was a good question that I saw asking about if you're not in harbor school, like how could you get into like the maritime industry? And obviously us students being students in harbor school, we can't really answer that. So I would like to point that to the panelists. Anybody that would like to answer?
I could answer real quick. And that goes also to the previous question about if you don't go to SUNY Maritime, how can you start? Like, for example, even I graduated from SUNY Maritime. I got the opportunity to work as a deckhand at NYC Ferry. Even with the third mate's license, I probably didn't know other options. So I went with that one. I got the opportunity to work as a captain there too. After that, I had to work as an AB to get my foot in the door, and then upgraded to third mate. So how can you do that? On deep water contracts, you could go through SIU, Seafarers International Union. There's a union hall in Jersey City. You could request information, and the agents will help you out, in the process of going through Piney Point, which is their program, starting from scratch. And it should be free to start. And then they get you jobs right off the bat once you finish that program. And that is one way. And then if you're going inland waters, small boats, starting as a deckhand, NYC Ferry, that's a good stepping stone if you want to start in that industry.
All right. I have a question for the Harbor School alumni. What was an experience in Harbor School that helped you grow and helped you in your career?
I could take that. Well, really Vessel Operations and Captain Aaron himself helped a lot because he gave us a lot of opportunities as Harbor School students. Myself, I was able to do the Tall Ships America Challenge internships just from him having the students go out to these conferences and networking and meeting a lot of people. And it gave me that opportunity to put my foot out there and to have jobs and learn a lot. Just the way the class was structured itself, if you look back and you pay attention to what you're actually doing right now as a student and you go to these maritime academies, for my first year at Maine Maritime, they were going over the basics, stuff that I did for 4 years in high school, because a lot of these kids that were with me have never really been on boats or this was their first introduction to it. So you really absorb a lot being in that Vessel Operations program, especially when you want to continue on into this field and this career, like from the little things, from dealing on privateer and Indy 7 and just working, with a bunch of different people, your classmates. You can't really choose them, just like how you'll be out there and you can't really choose your crew. So you do learn a lot through that, and just pay attention and you realize it'll all come back to you from what he's taught you or the experiences that the program has offered.
That was awesome. Thank you. A question in the Q&A says, it sounds like a lot of jobs take you out of town for months at a time. Is that right? How do people do that and also look after their families? This is geared towards the panelists who have been out more, you know, who have traveled more and have more of that experience.
I could answer that. I've done 3 months on, 3 months off, 6 months at a time, and it is difficult, and it's helpful to have family support, understanding that you're working. It really depends on where you are in life. I'd recommend doing it when you are younger and seeing the world a little bit. I think Nate Duran's experience is really wonderful, to go out there beyond the city and see what goes on. It really is eye-opening. I was lucky to travel all over the world for the past 6 years, and it's really a great experience, but there are a lot of challenges as well. So having a supportive family, kind of a grounds crew, can really help you out, because it is tough.
Can I chime in on that? Yeah, there's no question that an offshore seagoing business is going to take you away from home for extended periods of time. On the other hand, when you get into a relationship with someone, let's put it this way: if you're going to be a part of this industry, it requires strong people. And I'm looking at the females on this that I can see right now in gallery view, and I think one of the themes that comes across is that they're all strong people, and it's not meant for everyone, and that you should look at up front. There are many other aspects to the industry that do not require separation, such as the Staten Island Ferry. Everyone's home every night. They have normal vacations and so forth, but that doesn't suit everyone. And so I think it depends on what your particular makeup is. I have been married to the same woman now for almost 40 years. And I was actually I was getting a Coast Guard physical this morning to renew my license, which has caused me to be a little late for the original call. And I was telling the doctor that when I sat for my master's exam, I was trying to date my wife. And I kept asking her, well, are you available on Tuesday? No, I'm busy. What about Thursday? And I finally thought she was blowing me off. So I asked, well, what about Sunday? She said, well, don't you have some big exam next week? I said, oh, no problem. If you can make Sunday, I'll make myself available. So we did. We went out the Sunday night before, got home early, and I'm happy to say that I got the girl and I got the license. But she's a very strong woman. And if she was in the room right now, she would tell you, I used to enjoy myself when he was gone. And actually, some advice she gave to our daughter, who is married to an Army officer who's been deployed 3 times. She told our daughter, you can have a very nice life with him gone, provided you have your own career and your own interest. Do not ever sit there and wait for someone. And it was good advice. Our daughter is a strong woman, and it's not easy being separated. And I think Tara just said there that, yeah, you need a strong support system at home. But it's not for everyone. But good news is, the other side of the industry, there's plenty of jobs that do not take you away.
Thank you very much for that. I really loved the personal description that you gave to it. It made me feel even more empowered. As was said before, women can do anything men can do, especially, I guess, if they're gone.
Can I add something to that? So like Captain DeSimone was saying, like going deep sea is not for everybody. And personally, me, when I went to SUNY Maritime, I was going to get a third mate and go deep sea. I thought this was great. This is awesome. I get to travel everywhere. I get paid for it. But then I started working in New York Harbor with New York Water Taxi, and it just changed my mind. I said, you know what? I don't want to go deep sea. I like being home every day. I like, seeing the different tourists, different people. Every day is an adventure because it's always different, especially with the tourists. So, some people do go deep sea and they like it. It's not for everybody. Some people do like staying home and working in the New York Harbor. And there is a lot of, well, not right now because of the pandemic, but somebody that's not going to harbor school or SUNY Maritime, they can always just go to any of the ferry companies that we have. We have Water Taxi, the ferry, Staten Island Ferry, Circle Line, Sagitt Cruises. All those companies don't require anything for you to just join. So, you can call them up and say, hey, I'm interested, and they'll put you to work either on the dock or as a ticket agent, and slowly, get your foot in the door, and you can start building, that relationship with the company. You get to learn about boats, and you don't need an AB, you don't need a captain's license. You can just be a girl or gal coming off the street and say, hey, I want to work on a boat. What do I do? There's so many ferry companies in this New York Harbor that once everything opens up with this pandemic, there's so many opportunities out there. So if anybody's interested, just, call any of the ferry companies, talk to them. You can always reach out to me. I have a couple of connections with majority of them, put you to connections with the right people, and get your foot in the door. That's the biggest thing. Get your foot in the door and work your way up. Thank you.
Just to add to that, through my experience, I've been sailing deep sea with the union, and the contract I landed, I was lucky enough to have something stable. For example, I'm 4 months on, 4 months off, so I could plan ahead. Let's say probably not in the first month that I know I'll be getting off, because that date could change. But I know I'll be going home. I'll be home for the summer. Probably I won't be home for the holidays, but I know when I'll be home, I can plan vacation. And strong support, like Captain DeSimone said. I've been with my partner since high school, and she supported me. If I've this last time I had to do 5 months away from home because of the pandemic, and she was strong about it. I was strong about it. Other people, like let's say Military Sealift Command, those guys and gals are out there for 8 months to a year on a ship without getting off. So definitely be ready for that if you want to go deep sea. Anything could change, your contract. There's as little, I think, as 30 days, 45 days, and as much, depending what route you go. MSC, you could be whatever you choose. I think is 8, starts at 6 months to 12 months.
Okay, thank you for that. Now I will be handing it off to Robina, and she will continue the webinar.
Yes, thank you, Avery. Thank you all, to the panelists, to the moderators, New York Harbor School, everyone who has tuned in. If there's questions, you can send them into educate@nyharbor.org, and we can continue this discussion. This is funded by the National Science Foundation in conjunction with Pace University. So we have this great survey on STEM careers. So we'll put that into the chat, and we'll also have that in our wrap up as we send this out to all the participants. Thanks once again. Any parting words, wisdom of advice from our panelists?
I just want to thank everybody for joining in right now. And there's lots of questions that were great, which is always great about how do I get into the industry. We've heard it here right now. And the goal is, if you're a middle school student or you're a junior high school student, think about, harbor school as an option. There's also plenty of non-for-profits out there, sailing organizations like Hudson River Community Sailing, Clear Water, South Street Seaport Museum. So, harbor school is just one entity, but our goal is to have New York City kids that wouldn't necessarily know about these career paths choose it. And we've got folks that are having really amazing jobs that they wouldn't necessarily know without being introduced there. So again, I want to thank everybody for joining us here. And again, Billion Oyster Projects is a huge supporter of our school. The way they fund our programs is based on organizations like National Science Foundation. So please fill out the questionnaire that you'll see out there. And Rubina, you're gonna put up the slide now, or?
Yes, so our next panel is November 16th, and our focus is marine biology. So hope to see everyone there. Please go to the Eventbrite and register. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.